Thank you so much. Yes, asanteni sana, nashukuru sana. My name is Crystal Asige, and before I even begin, it's just to say thank you very much for having me. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for the kind words from Weshimiwa all the way to Minnesota. I am super humbled and grateful to be here in front of my fellow Kenyans and talking about something that's very, very important, not just to yourselves, but also to all stakeholders, all our stakeholders, as we call them in Kenya as well. So, asanteni sana. I want to pick up from where Mheshimiwa left off. She mentioned something in her address. She said, think differently. And that's exactly what a few of my thoughts are going to be based on today, about thinking differently as a SACCO. You know, my story starts in Bombolulu, Mombasa, where I was born and raised. We are from Vihiga County. My parents are Luya, but they were married and began their family in Mombasa. So that's where I was born, last born of my family. No dynasty, no wealth, you know, to pull from. Just a family of hard workers, a family whose parents instilled a lot of self-efficacy in us when we were younger, the ability to feel and to believe that you can do something to change your circumstance. That was very important to my parents to teach us when we were younger. And I think as young people, in my family we're 4, so all 4 of us, in our own way, shape, and form, took those lessons into now our adulthood. And mine, nonetheless, of course, because I now have a disability that I have to contend with every single day. I wasn't born with it, but it developed when I was a teenager in high school in Mombasa. And they told me that I have glaucoma when I was in university. After high school in Mombasa, I went to the UK to study. So those from the UK in Bristol, hey. They used to call me Crystal from Bristol. So I finished high school, went to university in Bristol, and all the while I was losing my eyesight because they told me that I have glaucoma. And glaucoma meant for me that because I'm black, it's much more aggressive in our eyes because of the color of our eyes. Because I was young as well, just a teenager going into a young adulthood, it'll take more time, it'll have more time to take its effect, they said. And they said that glaucoma has no cure. So basically, you need to learn how to live a new life. So I've been able to live on 2 sides of the coin, being a non-disabled girl and now being a disabled woman. And this theme of thinking differently has played the biggest part in me being in front of you here today. I usually say, and it's a mantra of mine that goes, if all you see is what you see, then you do not see all there is to be seen. And I think as members of this SACCO and the investments that you all pour into, and the projects that you want to help to grow, whether financially or otherwise, as a SACCO, as a group of Kenyans, the ambitions and the visions that you have, I want and I would wish that from today onwards you remember these words, that if all you see is what you see, then you're not seeing all there is to be seen. What do I mean by this? I mean that there are, of course, many SACCOs across the world, across Kenya, diasporans and Kenyans as well at home. And they do lots of things. Many of us are in SACCOs which do very similar things. Some of us are in even 2 and 3 and 4 SACCOs to diversify, of course. However, I want us to maybe consider moving forward how we can think differently and see beyond what is visible to our eyes in terms of what we can invest in and grow in as a group, as a Stoke SACCO. So what I'm thinking is this. Of course, because of the position that I now occupy, I have different parts of myself that I am using in my work today as a politician, as a parliamentarian. So like I said, I studied in the UK. In the UK, I worked at the BBC after doing a degree in media studies. I'm a media practitioner. I'm also a musician. I'm also a disability rights advocate, and now I'm a parliamentarian. So all those things, of course, are very different and diverse, and people might be like, hey, how did you even get yourself in parliament, madam? But it's because I harness this idea of thinking differently and thinking beyond or seeing beyond what other people see. And of course, my disability had something to do with that, obviously. Creativity, innovation, seeing beyond what others perceive, and being a leader, of course, means seeing what everyone else sees, but thinking in ways that nobody else is thinking. So when I was coming here and trying to decide my few thoughts that I would share with you in this address, I want you to consider inclusion. Not just disability inclusion, which is often what I talk about, but also youth inclusion and gender inclusion as well. Is it possible that a SACCO could become the alternative government, for example, in Kenya? If government is not working in different areas, if we feel that healthcare isn't where it could be, if we feel that education is not where it could be, if we feel that agriculture is not where it could be, and so on and so forth, is it possible for you as diasporans to come together, unify as a community across nations and jurisdictions and decide on a common goal and say, what if we were to be the alternative government? Right now, I'm entertaining a group of young creatives who are coming to me and asking me, how can we improve the creative industry in Kenya? We need funding. We need some support from government because we have no budget that is allocated to us as creatives. And no wonder you can see our music industry, our film industry is really trailing behind Tanzania and South Africa, Nigeria, and other nations in Africa, even though at some point Kenya in the 70s and the 80s were very, very culturally rich. And actually we were looked upon by many, many nations across the world. And I'm thinking, what if SACCOs were to be enjoined in this quest with, for example, the creative industry or the film industry, to say, you know what, us as a SACCO, as Stoke SACCO, this is what we are envisioning for the next 3 years or 5 years, and we believe strategically that we could focus or prioritize our efforts in the creative industry in Kenya, or the film industry in Kenya, or what have you, and then be the alternative government that creatives are currently looking for support from. What if, for example, you as a SACCO came together and said, let's work on education. Let's sit down with the Ministry of Education, or KICD, which is the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, and say, we want to draft a policy that allows for a new subject to be introduced in our education system around financial education and literacy in schools. You would be there as the SACCO to support in drafting this curriculum, in developing this curriculum, designing it in the way that you feel, because you have this exposure from out here, you know what could be for our kids at home, and then take it home and become the alternative government, giving alternatives and innovative ones at that in our education sector, so that our kids at home can have maths, Swahili, chemistry, financial literacy, drafted and pushed and developed by the diaspora SACCOs. You know, this is what I'm saying when I say think differently. What if the same could happen with mining industry? How can you as a diaspora SACCO be involved in our mine? Because there's a lot. We have a lot of minerals, a lot of, you know this, we all know this, right? And instead of waiting for other people to do it, a regime which will change every 5 to 10 years, you guys, your unity, the community that you have built and you continue to build across nations, not just across states here in the US, can become a solid, sustainable part of building our nation. Not just for 5 and 10 years, but for decades and for the future generations to come, like has been said. This is what I mean about seeing what everyone else sees, but thinking in ways that nobody else is thinking. I would love to be able to have an institution which has its own building somewhere in Nairobi or somewhere in Kenya. It says Stoke SACCO, whatever you'll call it, this huge building, right? Where young people, people with disabilities, women and other marginalized groups, or anyone really, can come and have different kinds of products to be able to plug into. Things that they cannot get from government, because every government will tell you, hatuna pesa, budget ndo shida. Hatuna lakini all the while we see Prados and Audis and convertibles in the streets, but it's okay, that's another story. What if that could be you? I'm inviting and I am beseeching you to now start thinking not just outside the box, but thinking without a box. Because you guys can see what's possible out here. And you know, when I went to Bristol and I studied and I worked there, I stayed a total of about 7 years in the UK between university and working at the BBC. And a lot of what I learned and saw there is what I've actually taken back to Kenya and injected into my work at Parliament. That's why when people look and read through my Persons with Disabilities Act, which passed last year, people say, like, this is so progressive. How did you do it, Asige? Like, how did you? And I just said, because I had an opportunity to go outside and see how people are living, and said, why not for Kenya? Why not for our people? Why not for children with disabilities in my communities? Why can't they enjoy this level of freedom, this level of rights, this level of empowerment at home? And I took those things and I brought them home. And yes, many of you have been here for 10 and 20 and 30 and more years, and perhaps you don't plan to go home permanently, but maybe this can be your legacy to Kenya, your long-term legacy to Kenya, for your children and your children's children, whether they decide to stay here or they decide to come home one day. For you to integrate yourselves as the alternative government or the alternative financial institution in Kenya. What would that look like? And how much change could that bring? And how much liberation could that bring as well? And confidence as well to young people and people who are looking at making Kenya, of course, greater, bigger and greater. Right? Instead of us waiting for someone else to come and save us in the name of a government or an executive or a parliament or a judiciary, why can't it just come from right here? Because if all you see is what you see, then you're not seeing all there is to be seen. It's something I've learned very deeply in my own story, and it's something that I push for, and I remind myself to always walk by faith, not by sight, not to let someone tell me what can and cannot work, or what ideas are good enough, or what ideas are feasible enough. And I'm like, well, no. Limitation is only up here. It's only in the imagination. And that's actually when I discovered that this is not disability. This eyesight, or lack thereof that you see, this is not the disability. Up here is where disability lives. It's actually up here. And so I just want to encourage, strongly encourage. I'm not a financial expert. Me, I'm not the minister for treasury. I'm not there. But all I have that I want to give to you is lived experience that when you think differently, you gain so much more than you would have otherwise. When you think differently and you push through the fear of, oh, it's not been done, we don't know how to do it, you know, or let somebody else handle that, or we'll just stick to what we've been doing for the past X amount of years. This is where we're safe and we feel like, you know, it works, you know, it's a sure bet. When you move on to the other side of that, that's where magic lies. That's where growth lies. That's where elevation and and just, yeah, fantastic things. I would not have been able to stand here and say I'm a senator of the Republic of Kenya if I wasn't the kind of person with that kind of mindset. So that is what I want to plant in this room today, and see maybe in the next 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, however long it is, if there are any fruits that bear from this seed. It would be fabulous. It would be fabulous, absolutely fabulous, if we saw institutions like yours and other SACCOs coming together to push forward a common goal. Because that's what we are. Sisi ni Ubuntu. I am because you are. Yeah, like that's what we live by, and that's what our ancestors have, given to us, from generations before us, and we need to continue that way. And now harness technology, harness the power of things like AI, harness the power of our youth and their creativity and their energy and things like that. All of that put together, because I believe that all we have right now is all we need. All we have right now is what we need right now. Yeah, that's what I really believe. So I would like to maybe close it there because of time. But still, I really appreciate all that you're doing, you guys. I'm as a former diasporan myself, as a recovering diasporan when I was living in the UK. I do understand the challenges of being away from home, worrying about home while still trying to, live day to day here and work things out in your daily lives. I do understand sometimes the fear as well of, should I go home? Is there anything at home for me? Will it work? Will I do well? Should I just stay here where, I understand and where I'm comfortable, where it's convenient? What about delivery services that work so well here? I can do my taxes on the internet so easily here. These things that maybe are not at home, but perhaps you are the solution that you've been waiting for. How about that? How about that? If we all had that kind of mindset, I believe that Kenya would be way, way different than it is today. We don't have to wait for a regime. We don't have to wait for an individual. We don't have to wait for a moment, because all we have here is all we need right now. So I thank you very much. And I also wanted to shout out a few of the team that are here. I'm sure they'll say hello in their own way, shape, and form. But I also run an organization. It's called the Crystal Asige Foundation. I opened it a 1.5 years ago while in Parliament, and it works to support people with disabilities, programs and projects of empowering PWDs. Right now I'm working with special needs schools across the country. I've mapped out 120 special needs schools where I'm partnering up with an organization called Green Generation Initiative, GGI. And what we're doing together is we're going into special needs schools and we're teaching kids with disabilities how to plant and grow their own food. So mbogas, mrenda, skoma. They also have a chicken coop that we're building. So we build a little sustainable something in the corner of each school that we're going to be visiting, so that these kids, number one, can have nutrition. They can understand how to grow for their own, use their own hands to help themselves. Because people, as PWDs, people expect that we want handouts, that we want charity, that we can't do anything for ourselves. But actually we can. We just need to be taught and given the tools and skills to be able to do so. And so I feel like teaching kids how to grow their own skuma and to have a chicken coop and to see them grow and understand how that works, to have their own nutrition, have those skills on their own, and then also what has happened so far in 2 schools that we've worked on, one in Kasarani, it's called Treetops, it's actually our flagship. Treetops are now reporting that the nearby hotels and kiosks and things and stuff are actually now buying food from them. So not only are they reporting nutrition improvements in school, but also they're reporting that they're getting a bit extra change, some pocket money for the school, which is really fabulous, especially for this idea of impact and sustainability. Because once Crystal Asige leaves this position, because I won't be here forever, one day I'll go back to Mombasa on the beach. I'll kick my feet up and I'll say, all right, God, I did my part, you know. I'll know that there is 120 schools, inshallah, that are carrying on sustainably because of the small thing that we planted and built for them. So if there's anything that you guys want to support or partner or just discuss anything with about me with at home, I can give you ideas, things that are going on, and we can continue the conversation hivyo hivyo. Sio? Shukrani sana. I thank you.